So you say that you and I cured cancer, like today. We figured out, oh man, this is the cure for cancer. It actually works 100 million%. It's totally the cure for cancer. That would not be the hardest part. The hardest part would be convincing everyone else that it's true. And I think LAMBDA is having a little bit of that problem because it sounds too good to be true. It does. I mean, how rare is it that you think something sounds too good to be true and then it turns out to be as good as it sounds? Almost never. But I feel like that is true with LAMBDA. It's really great. But it's hard to talk about it without people being like, what are you selling? I'm not selling anything. I went through it and I really like it. I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do with my life before. And I wanted to be a web developer, and it was difficult to find a direction, especially one that wasn't risky and didn't involve paying tens of thousands of dollars to do something else. And it came along, and I'm really glad I gave it a shot. So,
what's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Only one more day until the new WoW X-Pack comes out. People keep asking me, will I be playing it? I don't know, maybe. I don't have that much time. I gotta make video every day, live stream. I'm on that YouTube grind more than I'm on that WoW grind, you know? Actually, I'd say life grind, progress, you know? Anyways, who you saw there, her name is Caitlin. She is a project manager at LAMBDA School, which means that she's basically done with the program, but not quite. So she's made it through the entire curriculum. She just hasn't done her final project where she gets with a group of people, creates it, and then has to defend it in front of like teachers and employers and all that stuff so that they can see that they have the understanding of everything they've learned since they've been there. So when you get to that point, LAMBDA School opens up applications and you can apply to be a mentor, in which you take a few month contract and you'll be basically teaching students that are just now coming to the school. It helps reinforce their knowledge. They get to help other students kind of give back. It's a paid job, like it's a paid position. But that's kind of what this video is about. Her experience both as a student and as a mentor, and her favorite parts about both, her least favorite parts about both. And I just want to kind of give a different perspective of things rather than what I've been doing. So I think, so if you're interested, to be completely transparent, there is a link in the description. If you use that link in the description for LAMBDA School, you get $250 when you graduate the school, and you help support the channel. If you use that link, that's awesome. If you don't, hey, no big deal. Regardless, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more of these videos, hit that little subscribe button. If you'd like to reach out and engage with me, join the Discord. There's a link for the Discord in the description, or just shoot me an email. My email's in there too. Or just leave a comment. I'd love to know what you guys think. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to the patrons that do support this channel. We have Louise, Josh, the Martin Fee, Vlaslo, DJ Richie, Craig, Aubrey. I really appreciate all you guys for supporting the channel, and I couldn't do all this without you. So if you've ever considered donating to someone on the internet to help support their cause, if I've helped you out, maybe consider me next time. I'd appreciate that. Now, without further ado, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. So this is Caitlin. She is I don't know, what would we say, project manager, right? And then, but you're like a mentor too, right? So you grade and...
Right, so I'm responsible for checking all of the students' assignments, doing their code reviews. I run the daily stand-up. I also explain the solutions for code challenges, and am just a general support structure for every student. I have 9 students right now, so every day I have like an office hour that I do so that they can hop in and ask questions, or I reach out to them if I notice they're struggling and that sort of thing.
That's pretty cool. So what got you into code? Like what's your background?
So I actually have always enjoyed computers, and when I was much younger, I started coding in BASIC a really long time ago. Like I was 8 years old, and then I did some computer science in high school, and I thought, man, this is really cool. What actually happened was my computer science teacher, of all people, discouraged me from pursuing it in college. He was worried about jobs being outsourced or something. I'm not entirely sure what was going on, but it worked. And I was like, oh, well, I want to be able to get a job if I graduate. That was bad advice, it turns out. So then I actually went to traditional schooling. So I have a bachelor's of science in chemistry right now. And after that, I went to get my master's degree in forensic toxicology, which is more like an applied chemistry. The work itself wasn't very challenging. I didn't actually have to think about very many things or make very many decisions in my day-to-day work, which is not something I enjoyed. So I started looking for something else. I went through a variety of other interesting jobs. I started my own business doing tutoring. I worked for the foster care system, just kept coming back to this idea of being a web developer. It has a lot of things that I enjoy. the autonomy that we were talking about. I also like that it's something of a meritocracy, right? So I'm not going back to traditional school for it, but I'm still going to be able to find a job and contribute to a team already just with the skills that I have. And I like that there's multiple things that you can do with this skill set. So I could still go work for myself. I can work for a corporation. I can freelance. I can do any number of things, and I enjoy that flexibility. I like the day-to-day work too because I like problem solving, and I enjoy just coding as a practice and as a skill. So that's kind of why I leaned this direction, and it is well compensated for what you do. So one of the reasons that it took me a long time to get here is that I tend to over research things. I spent a lot of time looking at different boot camps. I mean, there's boot camps all over the country, right? For coding. There's ones that are purely online. There's ones that are physical. And I looked at all of them. A lot of them have very, very high upfront costs. And that, it scared me a lot, especially having come from a traditional education system and still having student loan debt from a degree that I'm not using anymore. That's the last thing I wanted again. I didn't want to have to take out, a $20,000 loan or borrow money from someone to go and do this thing that I'm not sure, or I wasn't sure would work out, right? It just wasn't feasible for me. So there are a couple of other programs that are doing the income sharing agreement that LAMBDA is, but I think that they were first, and I think their implementation of it is the best. And the thing that really, really sold me on it was the fact that I feel like our interests are aligned, right? LAMBDA School's interests and my interests are the same. They're not trying to make money by tricking me into going to school there. And I'm not saying that boot camps are all doing that. I'm just saying that is a thing that you could interpret, right? Like, well, after you graduate, it doesn't matter. They already have your $20,000. But I feel like LAMBDA School's interests and my interests are well aligned, and that if I get a job and I am successful, so are they. So I really liked that. Their shtick is that anyone can do this, and everyone should, right? This is one of the best career paths to choose to pull yourself up to a higher income class if that's what you want to do. And there's nothing that's so obscure or mystical about programming that people can't learn to do it. And so I love that attitude. I love the attitude that LAMBDA has about teaching people how to do this and how using this as a tool to both better themselves and to increase the diversity in the market and just to make the world a better place. Teach everyone to code. It's a good skill to have. I think it's really cool.
I think there's some boot camps that, like, I would say poison the well. The ones that do what you say, take your money, but have no risk in the student. Like, there's no guarantee. Like, I always say this in every single video, like, or anyone who asks, if it doesn't have a guarantee or some deferment which shows investment in a student, don't go to it, because they have no responsibility to follow through with their curriculum or even care if you get a job. It's like, we have that's what you are at that point. You're customer support.
I don't want to be a commodity or a customer. I want to be a partner in this experience, right? Like, without students, LAMBDA School wouldn't exist. Peers that have, crazy different, diverse stories from mine, right? I've met people who are really young who are actually in college and just took a semester off. And I've met people that are, in their 40s who already have 3 kids, and they need this because they want to make a life that's better for their families. And it's really cool.
I think there are some people, though, who do it purely for the money, but actually don't like what they're doing at all. And so those people are pretty vocal about, like, probably how school didn't prepare them. Like, just some people, because you're going to sit, you're going to code all day, and if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. If you need to get up, be hands-on, like, project, talk to people. There's a lot of moments in code when you're not, like, pair coding, that you're sitting there with headphones on, problem solving, thinking through stuff. If you're the type of person who needs to get up, walk around, talk to people all day, I think anyone can do it. I just think that some people do it for the wrong reasons. But the people that are in it, that like tech like me, like, I didn't learn to code till I was like 25. But I always built computers, played games. I was always into the tech stuff. I just skipped programming for whatever reason. I think there's a lot of other people out there like that.
Really a leading a horse to water sort of situation, right? So, yeah. And the people that I've heard that are displeased with whatever LAMBDA offers, it's usually some variation of that. They didn't put the time in. I mean, no one is going to force you to learn something. That's impossible, right? It's not a magical bullet. It's not like if you sit here and watch these videos, at the end of 6 months, you're going to be handed to a $200,000 a year job. You have to hustle, you know?
That's how it is in every aspect.
Right? That's life. So if you're coming here for some sort of thing where, you know, all of a sudden it's not a golden ticket, right?
Depends on your hustle. It could be the golden ticket, which is what you see. Like, you see the success stories, but you got, like, no one sees the work. Like, no one sees the 8 to 5, like, literally for a year. Like, everyone just sees, like, yeah, I went to code school and got the job offer.
And I'm going to wake up a couple hours early and do code challenges, and I'm going to work on projects on the weekend. That's what it is, right? Like,
they just want to see the end trophy that you hold up, which you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work.
so the way being a project manager works is you go through it, and then before you actually finish what's called LAMBDA Labs, which is sort of like a capstone project, you become a PM. So I haven't finished my final capstone project, and I started being a PM in the middle of July. So it was a couple of weeks ago. I haven't started the capstone yet. After I finish my contract for being a project manager, I'm going to rejoin a class that's graduating and do labs with them. So it's about a month to create an entire capstone project. And there's it's a very structured process. You meet with people every day and you give presentations about what you're doing, and it's supposed to recreate the actual work environment of working on a team and having to be accountable to someone. So
there's like a certain day where everyone can choose to continue or be like, I would like to do project management. Is that how that works?
It's actually like a job. So they open the applications to everyone, and then they accept applications from any student that wants to apply. And then I had to interview. And once I got accepted, I started working as a PM.
And then how long is the contract for that? Like one whole course, or?
There are a couple of different contracts, or at least there were when I was offered a PMship, because they just recently switched to doing 4-week content blocks to 5-week blocks. So now it's 4 weeks of content and 1 week of project, and then it just repeats like that. So my contract is 3 months. There was another one that was 2. They also have a part-time class, so you can be a PM for that, which I think is a little bit longer, or they use PMs that are currently happening.
All right, and so it's like an actual job. So you're getting paid to do this.
I am.
So I don't know, maybe we can cut this out, but it's like curious. Do they actually pay you, or could you negotiate to like take that money off of the cost later?
You know, people asked that, but I think that it might just be a little bit too difficult to do with the contracts. Also, the income share agreement only takes effect if you make more than $50,000 a year. I don't think that they would. I think the tax implications or something are too complicated, so they just pay us.
What was the hardest part about the whole thing?
I think honestly, maybe if we're talking from like a structural taking school online sort of issue, there's 2 things that I struggled with. And one is the time zone difference. So the school is based on West Coast time, but I live in Texas. So I'm 2 hours ahead. And so my day ends at 7, which isn't even as bad as people on the East Coast have it. And then we have, like, there's one of the students in the class that I'm PMing for now who lives in England, I think. So he finishes at like 3 in the morning. That's difficult for me just from a personal standpoint because it sort of interrupts my ability to do other things outside of school. The second thing I would have to say is the social isolation of going to online school. When I first started attending LAMBDA school, I hadn't really met people, and it was a digital wasteland essentially, right? So it felt very isolating. I didn't have like the experience of, you know, sitting in a classroom with a bunch of people. It felt a little bit disjointed. That was difficult. I mean, it resolved itself, and it was because I decided to start reaching out more and like, be my friend. But that was probably the hardest part for me in terms of just the structure of the course. When it comes to content, I think the material that was the most difficult for me was C. I'd never programmed in C before, and I've never done anything with pointers or memory allocation or any of those things that everyone loves C for. But I'm really glad that we did it. It gives so much, gives so much information and nuance to the material of any other, or like the inner workings of any other language, right? So in JavaScript, just like an array is an array. You can put as much as you want in it. And C, you have to worry about everything. And so it was very informative.
Let's talk about like curriculum, structure of the day. Like, what do you love? What would you change?
So one of the things that I really love about LAMBDA School is just the general culture. All of the people that I've interacted with from LAMBDA school have been, well, I mean, they're just really kind people, and they're all super willing to reach out and help you. This includes the instructors, Austin himself, everybody. Everyone that I've had the pleasure of talking to has just been a really nice and willing to bend over backwards to help a student succeed type of person. So I really like that. That being said, there have been growing pains. So I started in CS8. Some of the material wasn't all the way finished. Now that I'm a PM and going back through it, I've seen how much work they've done since then, so that's good. But it's ultimately still always a work in progress, which is one of its strengths and one of its downsides, is that, well, you new things are always coming. Maybe you just missed something really great because it's only available for the next class. Or maybe something didn't work out so well that they tried, because they're always trying different programs and new things. And so it's great that they're constantly innovating, but it can be a little jarring sometimes to have administrative things switch on you or new policies implemented. One of the things that happened to my class was originally at the end of every week we have a sprint challenge, which is a project that is a culmination of the entire week's materials. And what you have to do is essentially you have to do a good job at that, right? You get graded for it, and you get a star rating, which it's not graded, but it's basically, did you do enough to show that you have these skills? You work on it by yourself, you can't pair program. Well, they decided ultimately to start issuing certificates, and you have to pass 80% of those sprint challenges. But that wasn't true at the beginning of my starting of CS8. It's something that happened somewhere along the way. So at one point we had to sort of scramble to get them all graded. And as a student, I had to scramble to make sure all of my sprint reviews were submitted and correct, and that I hadn't scored myself too low, because the student scores themselves and then the PM scores them. And if the student scores you, if I score myself a 1, I still fail, right? So that was a little bit frustrating. It's just the pains of trying to do something so enormous, and they wanted to get students as soon as possible, but that means that some students, right, you're just going to have to deal with some of the administrative growing pains.
I mean, technically it's still a startup, so what's it like working with students? Do you like teaching? How is that?
I love teaching. I've actually, in some aspect or other, taught for a lot of my life. Like, I used to be a teaching assistant and an instructor for a summer math program that taught. That's actually one of the things that made me first like computers, because it's for middle school students to increase diversity in the STEM field. So I taught math and formal logic, and actually we taught Java itself back then, and then we taught Visual Basic too, because that's always fun, and engineering principles and things like that. So I have a lot of experience doing this sort of teaching and mentoring, and I really enjoy it for multiple aspects. One is that there's no better way to solidify your own knowledge than to have to explain it to someone else. I've always found that if I can explain it to somebody, I understand it about 10 times better than I did before. It's just really nice to be able to share your knowledge with another person, and to give them that support to also help them change their lives. So I really enjoy it.
So what's the most difficult thing about being a teacher?
Right now, the most difficult thing is that a lot of the students are just, there's this underlying idea that they think they're bothering me, so they won't reach out for help. Or they're doing, and I see that, like, I do the same thing. Now, I have a really difficult time asking for help, but being on the other end and having people not ask me for help is incredibly frustrating, because I know they're struggling, but they won't ask me for help, and so I can't help them. I don't know exactly what their questions are. And then at the end of the day, they'll say, oh, I had a bad day, or I was struggling with this all day. And I'm like, why didn't you ask me? I'm sitting here waiting for your questions. So right now, that's the hardest thing I'm dealing with, because I just want to help all of them. And that's challenging. I've had to do the thing where I'm like, no, you are plenty smart enough to do this. You are going to be fine. It is just a lot of material. And yeah, I mean, for the first couple of weeks, a lot of it is just hand holding. Everyone's like, I can't do this. I don't know what it is. You know, it's code. There's things on the screen, and it's really hard. I'm like, yes, it is really hard, but you're totally gonna be fine. I say the words "you're going to be fine" at least 27 times a day. So in various ways. So yeah.
Yeah, I was the person that you're saying you're going to be fine to 27 times.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
it's
actually on
fine.
the other
I
end.
totally get it.
I was like, I was on the opposite end. I was like, I don't know how to do this. What am I doing? Until eventually, like, I would, if I couldn't figure it out after X amount of time, then I would ask. But before, I would just ask about everything because the code just looked like Egyptian hieroglyphics. Anyone who's never seen any other code besides the Matrix.
It's one of those things, especially because we have people coming from so many diverse backgrounds. So we have people who are more tech savvy, right? People who have used computers their whole lives. But I have a student who's not, I don't think like he's not a native English speaker, so he struggles with that a little bit. And then I have, some students that are a little bit older and that sort of thing. So a bunch of different people coming at it from different experiences. Part of that can be a little bit challenging, trying to figure out how to reconcile all of these different backgrounds and still give everyone the support that they need, because 9 people is a lot of people to monitor, and especially if they're all having trouble at the same time, which generally they will, because when the material gets hard, it gets hard for everybody. So that can be kind of challenging. So I've had some that I suspected are not working as much as they should or not paying attention to the lectures, but there's really nothing I can do about that, right? There's no intervention I can mount that will fix that, because I can't go to their house and make sure they're typing or sitting in front of their computer. So ultimately, I just try to make sure that they know how important it is that they do these things.
So true or false, is the best part about teaching when you see them understand it? Like they go from like the click moment. I don't know. That's what it is for me. When it's like they finally get it, and just it's like a different person shows up on the screen. Like you see.
Those are the good days. Those are totally the days where you're like, yes, all of this was worth it. I'm so glad that now you know how to invoke a function, or now you know how to, do this thing. And it's me, or like for me, it's when they actually get excited about a topic. So it's not just an understanding. I like it when they're like, this was really cool. And I'm like, yes, it is really cool. I'm so glad you're excited about it too.
I always remind them, I'm like, all right, this moment that you feel right now, you're excited because you figured it out and it makes sense. So now it's cool. Yeah, remember this moment right now the next time you get stuck, because you're gonna think the same thing. Oh, I can never do this. I can't figure it out. I don't get it. No, go back a week ago. You said that, and then you were like, I figured it out. That's what I tell them every time, and they're like, okay, but like it doesn't make sense. Like the first couple times you think that you're never gonna do it, then you have a history of figuring stuff out you never thought you were gonna figure out, and so it's easier to be like, all right, I just got to give it more time, or more effort, or whatever. Final question. Why did you choose to be a PM instead of moving on to do the capstone and then find a job?
That is a really excellent question, because there are multiple viewpoints that I have observed when it comes to people who are asked to do this. So one of the keys of success for LAMBDA is that you have to have really effective project managers. If you don't have an effective project manager, we're the person that they interact with from LAMBDA every day. They see the instructors and they interact with the instructors, but it's one instructor and 70 people or 65 people, right? So we're like the boots on the ground. We are the person that you see every day, who tells you about how your code is, who answers your questions and that sort of thing. And if you don't have effective project managers, then you essentially don't have an effective program. And so I had, throughout the course of my LAMBDA thing, I had 3 project managers. My first one and I didn't get along very well, and I don't think he was very effective. He never did code reviews or anything like that, and that was resolved in a fair way. But the second one was great, and the third one was great. And the combination of seeing how helpful and supportive they were, and also just the fact that I like teaching, meant that I was more inclined to want to. But what also really sold me is that I wanted more time with the material, and LAMBDA is just something that I actually really think is great. I wanted to be part of the community in a deeper way. So I wanted to, now that I'm a PM, I get to interact with instructors more, and I get to interact with more of the people behind the scenes, and I'm closer to its mission because I'm actually working with them in addition to having been a student. So I really enjoy seeing it from that side as well.
All right, where do you see yourself right after this, and then in 5 years?
So I do have short-term and long-term goals. My short-term goal is to get a web development position somewhere in a shop here in Austin, in a physical location. But in 5 to 10 years, I actually want to have a remote position working for a nonprofit and I want to buy a farm in Costa Rica. I like web development is that I can work remotely. And if I can work remotely, I can use global arbitrage and I can afford to live in a lush tropical paradise that is Costa Rica and have my farm and still get to do this cool job.